Would the machine, Albert Pujols, be the best fit for manager for our Angels?
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. There are some reports that Arte Moreno wants Albert Pujols to be the manager of this team in 2026. So if so, there is one big benefit that Albert brings that we're going to share with you. And what would be the long-term commitment from the Angels to Albert if he becomes the manager?
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
Hey, we're talking Angels baseball with you every single Monday through Friday. So if you need some Angel conversation in your life while everybody else is having fun, playing in the playoffs, and all the other teams are out there having a good time, we're here talking about the Halos because we know that you're dedicated. We know that you love this team. In fact, we want to know how much you love this team. We have a roster report card that we do every year after the season where you get to grade all the players from the 2025 roster and give them a letter grade. We add it all up and we spit it out and give you the results. And we'll do that soon on the show. So there's a link in the episode description where you can find that Google survey to fill out the roster report card. Shouldn't take you very long. And we'd love to hear from you. We've already got 50 respondents. In the past, I think we've had close to 300. So let's get on that. Let's get in there and grade that 2025 roster.
John, Ken Rosenthal from The Athletic released a report yesterday.
You mean
the Angels?
This Ken Rosenthal?
Oh. Yeah, the one that gives dirty looks at the umpire that he
knocks over cameraman.
That's right. It was a cameraman. So he said that the next managerial candidate that Artie really wants is Albert Pujols. He believes that he's the leading choice for the job, according to reports out of Anaheim. And one source close to Albert Pujols suggested that the decision is really going to be Albert's to make. Now, he does have that personal service contract that kicked in 2022 after he retired. He's been contributing to the Angels over the last couple of years. John's been in uniform a couple of times, especially in the springtime, and did talk to the media during the springtime. We'll share what he had to say in just a moment. He also worked with Angel prospects at their academy in his native Dominican Republic. And remember, he had really good experience, great managerial experience in the Dominican Winter Leagues, led his team to a championship in his first season at the Helm. Man, let's hire him if he can do that. He's been tabbed as the Dominican national team for the World Baseball Classic to be the manager for that team. Word is, if he took this job with the Angels, that's going to impact what he does in the WBC. Now, when he was asked if he would like to manage, he was asked this back in March, Pujols said, yeah, I think, why not? I think if the opportunity is right, I'll be ready for that one day. Also back in March, he was asked about the Angels, and I thought his answer was interesting. I want to get your thoughts. He said, I think the organization has done a great job this year to put a great product on the field. Now, remember, this is March before the season started. He said, not just in the big leagues, but getting guys down in the minor leagues and getting help to this ball club, preparing them to win a championship. When asked how he felt about the Angels and how close they were to putting a winning product on the field, he says they put out a winning product every year. The problem is injuries. Now, this is very different, John, than what Ron Washington said when he was informed that he was going to be let go, and he spoke to Sam Blum. When he was asked about this team and the players that he had and the roster construction, he says, when you're a competitor, when you're in charge, none of that stuff matters. Sometimes you got to make chicken salad out of chicken, and you can fill in the blank there. He said it, I didn't. So, John, I'm going to start with this. Albert being cautious with his words. Is he being cautious because of his friendship with Arte Moreno? Because it sounds very much like a Angel organization narrative.
Yeah, it's definitely political speak. But the fact is he's on the payroll, isn't he, Mike? He's not going to come out there and say bad things about this team. He's not going to tarnish this team. I don't think that he's in the wrong in terms of, I think they've done a great job this year to put a great product on the field, not just in the big leagues, but, going down to the minor leagues and getting guys that are going to help them there. They've tried. And for the most part, there's a lot of guys to be excited about. And we are all fans of them, right? Zach Neto and Logan O'Hoppe and Joe Adell, Nolan Schanuel. guys that we're all excited for. But the part I disagree with is the idea that the problem is injuries.
Mm-hmm.
That was true. And I think you can go back to the Trout, Rendon, Ohtani years, and Albert was certainly part of those as well. But the fact is that it's more than just injuries. It's what becomes of the injuries, right? Yeah, a lack of depth, not signing guys to fill in that are going to be, at least major league adequate. One of the things about this offseason was signing Kevin Newman to be off the bench, and I know he filled in for Neto a lot to start the season because we all knew Neto was going to come in hurt. Wasn't even league average, Mike. In fact, worst season of his career, and it's just like, you sign these guys to come in and be something, right? Something close to league average, and they can't even do that. But the problem is that everybody who comes here all of a sudden can't be league average, right? And I think that's a lot of the issue here. So I disagree with Pujols in that sense. However, I understand where he's coming from. He's on the payroll with this personal services contract. I don't know how much of a friendship with Arte Moreno factors into this, but I will say, and this kind of leads into our next question, is what kind of manager will Albert be? I think the success that he had in the Dominican Winter League, I think that speaks well for him. He's the fact that, it's his first year managing a team and he gets them to the championship and they win it all. Now I understand it's also the Dominican Winter League. And so the dynamics are going to be a little bit different than they are at the major league level. But having said that, in terms of experience, we've seen people become managers with a lot less. Haven't we?
Yeah. Man, what kind of manager will he be? We really don't have anything outside of what we saw in the Dominican leagues. And I just hope that he's a manager that actually manages and is thoughtful in his management. I hope he's a manager that's wise in his management. I hope he's a guy that holds team players accountable. I hope he's a guy that says, this is who we're going to be. This is the vision of where we're going to go. That if he's going to be the guy, then I hope he's a guy that is a no nonsense type of guy. That doesn't mean you have to be rough and gruff and yell and scream. I think he needs to be somebody that prioritizes being the CEO of this team on the field and make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. We hear that narrative all the time. Like, hey, these guys are putting in the work and they're doing what they need to do. But if the performance on the field is terrible, then I want to see Albert Pujols not just stick with a guy because we want to see this through with them, right? Like, I think we're at that place now where it's time to stop seeing it through and it's time to go, who's my best option for that position? Which means that you need to have a Bryce Teodosio in this outfield in 2026 if you don't go and sign somebody, because he's the best defensive option for you, which means that you need to have Jorge Soler ride the pine and use his bat if you need a pinch hitter, because he's going to be the best option for that. He's not an everyday player. He has proven to not earn the right. If he blows it up in the spring, then maybe you reconsider that. But I would love everybody to start at zero. And I would love for Albert to say, I need you start here and run. And whoever gets there first is going to get a position. You know what I mean? I want to see guys earn the right to play on the field. I don't want to just him tip the cap to the veterans. Well, you're a veteran, so you're going to be there. I want him to go, Mike Trout, here's what we're doing with you, bro. We're going to have you DH. We're going to have you in left field, whatever might be the case. Taylor Ward, you didn't swing at strike one, strike two, or strike three. Guess what? You're getting moved down in the lineup. I would love 250,000 different lineups in 2026 if Albert Pujols is the manager, because he's watching these guys either perform well or not perform at all, and he's moving the lineup around. That's what I want to see from a manager. So it's hard for me. I didn't see him manage in the Dominican leagues. Yeah, he won a championship. That's awesome. Glad to see that. Glad to hear that. He feels like he's respected. Yeah, seems like players really love him. That's a good sign. I just want to see an Albert who comes in and helps this team actually win, which brings us to our third question, John. So do you think he's better than Torii Hunter, or do you think that Torii Hunter is the guy that they need to go with?
Yeah. It's difficult because everybody knows I'm very partial to Torii Hunter, especially since, he was in the dugout. It seemed like he had a nice little influence and impact over the players when he was with them in the dugout. So that's tough because I don't think you can go wrong either way, honestly, Mike. I don't think that Torii is a bad choice, and I don't think Albert is a bad choice. Would Torii be my first choice? Right now I'm leaning, but I'm not going to be upset if he doesn't get it and it goes to Albert Pujols, but you have to think about the history that Pujols has in terms of his own career and the excellence of the really the Cardinals organization that he was in, because I know the Cardinals are not on that level of excellence that they were, in the 2000s and early 2010s, right? So that is to say, Pujols knows excellence, and he's a champion. And he's, before Trout, there was Albert Pujols, right? And it was like, that's the greatest player in the game right now.
Yeah.
That's Albert Pujols. And yeah, maybe the back nine, I guess it technically was 9 with the Angels, because he didn't finish that 10th year. The back 9 of his career didn't go as well as you'd thought it would. And that's okay, because I think that when you've been in a system of excellence as a player and you've been around guys like Yadier Molina, we'll talk about him a little bit later on. And, just thinking about the managers that he's had over the years and whatnot, I think that he brings a level of excellence that this team hasn't seen in a very long time. And he's not going to be out there with the bat, and, the skills go away as you get older. But I think the mindset that Albert can bring to this team is something we haven't had in a very long time. It's also a fresh voice, Mike. He's not managed before.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned the other day, we've had guys who have managed before and guys who haven't managed before. And it's time for a fresh voice. And whether that is Torii Hunter, whether that's Albert Pujols, man, to me, that's better than nothing, or that's better than doing the same things we've already been doing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is they're both fresh to managing. And so I would want them to have permission, have the freedom to build the plane while they're flying it, which means that they're not stuck in, this is what we're doing, we're going to try this out for a while, and then we're going to move on and try something. They can go, nope, didn't work in game 1. Let's adjust. And an example of that was the first game of the year, when we had a lineup where we were like, why is Tim Anderson batting where Tim Anderson is batting? And why, right? And then it was like nothing was adjusted. Nothing was changed. And so I want adjustments. If it doesn't work in game 1, adjust it in game 2. And here's why. I'm not just a fan that thinks I know better. I'm a fan who's watched this team not adjust for 10 years. Yeah. So I want to see quick, fast pivots. I want to see quick, fast adjustments, and perhaps bringing in these guys who haven't managed before. They're going to go, that didn't work. Let's try this. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this. Oh, that worked. Let's continue to do that. I want guys that will notice what we notice. I want guys that'll go, and Mike Trout's better at leadoff, and so let's put him at leadoff, and then let's have Nolan Schanuel bat second and Zach Neto bat third. That's the best kind of lineup we can have in there, instead of moving pieces around and going, well, Mike Trout's the GOAT, so he has to bat third, and he has to be. I want guys that go, nope, this is what we're doing, and not just because it's the right thing, but because it's the most effective thing. It's the most successful thing. If fans can see it, I want Albert or whoever, I want them to see it.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. If we can all see it, which we have, especially over the last 10 years, and especially the last 4 years we've been doing this podcast together with our everydayers, we all see it. So it's important that the manager sees it. And again, I think Albert brings a level of excellence to the club. Is it a very Angels and Arte Moreno move to have him be the manager so that everyone goes, oh yeah, Albert Pujols, right? Yes, it is. And that's the crux of this. Is it's a very Arte move. It's a flashy move. It's a splashy move. It's going to get headlines. It's going to be all of that. However, and we'll talk about this in our next segment, I think that there's a benefit in addition to one big other benefit that can be brought to the table. And we'll discuss that in a little bit. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. And coming up, there is one big benefit in bringing Albert in as the manager. We'll share what that is in just a minute.
We're in the midst of the NFL season, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready to win some money. You're ready to pay attention. You're ready to follow the game closely. Right now, if you're a new customer to FanDuel, you can bet $5, and if your first bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app, and your bet's going to win. You're a smart fan. You know what you're doing. And FanDuel is great because you can bet however you want. Player props, same-game parlays, maybe even jump in on the action as it unfolds live. It's quick, it's easy, and it's very easy to get drawn in. It's very easy to get excited with FanDuel because they have so many different ways to bet. So get ready to play by downloading the FanDuel app right now. You can visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Available wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're watching or listening. Come on over to YouTube. And if you get on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We're talking Angels baseball all off season. So you're going to want to be subscribed and tuned in to Locked On Angels, because the drama never stops, my friends. It's like 90210, the OC, and Melrose Place combined, but about baseball. And so we're here talking about it. Of course, you can hit us up on social media at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros, wherever you social your medias. Now, Mike, is there a big benefit in terms of having Albert Pujols as the manager of the Angels in 2026?
Yeah, I think so. I want to share that with you. But first, here's what's interesting. Albert being rumored to be the guy that Arte wants, that means that he's going to be able to maybe pick his coaching staff. And we heard that Perry Manassian was tasked with calling Ron Washington, but also was tasked with calling other coaches to inform them on what's next for them. We're hoping that maybe by tomorrow we'll hear from Perry, but according to Sam Blum, there is no press conference scheduled and no conversations. I'm watching all of these other teams have conversations, but I'm not watching our team have a conversation. So it sounds like the next manager is going to be the guy that is going to be the one that says, hey, you're retained or we're letting you go. We're going to talk about the coaches on tomorrow's show. But one report that I actually love, John, that is the benefit, one of the benefits of bringing Albert Pujols to the Angels, is that he's been telling people, this is all rumors, all according to reports, that Yadier Molina would be a part of his coaching staff once he becomes an MLB manager. So think about Yadi on the bench. Think about Yadi's influence in Anaheim. But John, think about Yadier Molina working with Logan O'Hoppe, and not 5 other coaches telling him 5 other things, but Yadier Molina, World Series champion, great backstop, a guy who had a great bat as well, defense, fantastic. Yadier Molina working with Logan O'Hoppe. You know, Travis d'Arnaud said that his goal was to have O'Hoppe be the greatest Angel catcher of all time. If Yadier Molina is working with Logan O'Hoppe, I'm confident that O'Hoppe has the opportunity to become the greatest catcher in Angels history. So, Johnny, talk to me about Yadi and why you would love to have him on the bench in Anaheim.
Mike, it's another example of somebody who brings excellence to this coaching staff and to this managerial team and this franchise. Bringing in Yadier Molina. Look, we know what the problem is with the Angels, don't we? And everybody who watches this show, we all know. I said it yesterday. If we could fire the owner, we could, right? All that stuff. If you bring in Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina to be part of your franchise, and you still can't do anything, you know that the like, what did I say yesterday? The pyramid scheme of suck lies at the top with the ownership and the front office. There is no doubt to anyone who ever questions what the Angels can and can't do that it's not the players on the field, and it's not the manager, you know, the 6th manager in so many years, right? It begins and ends with ownership and the front office. And so if you bring in Yadier Molina to help Logan O'Hoppe, to have him as maybe the bench coach, right? I think he would be bench coach over catching coach, but sort of be both of them, right?
Sure.
To bring his influence to Anaheim. More excellence in terms of World Series champions, guys who've been there, done that, right? And if you screw that up, man, there's no hope for the Halos if they screw that up. And you know what? I want them all. Give me all 3. Give me Jose. Give me all the guys, right?
Yeah,
like,
Benji. I want them all.
Benji, yes, thank you. Yeah. I was gonna say Benji, but then I was like, no, that's Benji Gill. No, Benji Molina. Yeah.
Give me Benji Gill as well, right? Like,
right.
Because what you said the word excellence. The Angels have not pursued excellence in a lot of areas, especially when it came to their coaching staff, right? And they wouldn't pay for these guys to come in. They're going to pay for they're going to pay for the unknowns to come in. And I'm not opposed to unknowns. Right. I think that they're diamonds in the rough, right?
I think Barry Enright for what he's done well and what hasn't gone so well, getting somebody who worked under Brent Strom
Yeah.
in Arizona. That makes sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I can't get Brent Strom, who is widely regarded as the best pitching coach, for the last like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But get the guy who worked under him and give him a fresh shot. Like that I can get on board with, right?
Yeah, because they were taught excellence, right? And Barry has flaws and has work to do. But I think out of all the coaches that are on this team, I think Barry was probably the top coach. And some of you are probably
the least offensive, that's for sure.
I think some of you are like, well, that's not a great list to be on. You're right. But I'd rather be the best of all the suck than to be the worst of all the suck, right? And so I think about that word excellence. You bring in a Yachty, which means that you got to bring in other excellent people. And even if they're new to coaching, like Torii Hunter, I don't know if he could be a hitting coach, but John, maybe there's a conversation to be had there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think about other players that are out there. Maybe the Molina brothers decide we're going to come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's been a lot of everydayers that have said, man, what about like you bring in a Salmon or a Gooby or a Chuck Finley or a Jared Weaver, or you know what I mean? I think what you do is you prioritize excellence, and you say to Albert, I want excellence. Go get me excellence. Then bring me those names, and then I'll let you know if I can finance that or afford that. And I get that there's a limit and there's a budget.
Which they can. Things. They just won't. Yeah.
That's the thing. I hope that they do prioritize excellence. And we'll talk about this in the third segment. That is going to tell me if they're committed to Albert, if it is Albert, or whoever the manager is, and what they're going to do moving forward.
Well, and I teased this in the first segment. Now, I think the big benefit of Albert being here is Yadier Molina. And of course, we're all going to be singing yada, 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 yada. Now, that's not the benefit that I'm alluding to. The benefit I'm alluding to is, Mike, I brought this up several weeks ago. I've been hammering this home for the last few weeks. And now that we're finally at a point where we might go, hey, that guy's going to be the manager. I said that it needs to be somebody on the level of excellence and on the pedestal that Arte puts people on.
Yep.
That is equal with Mike Scioscia.
Yep.
Because everything that Scioscia wanted, for the most part, he was able to get from Arte Moreno. Even when it came down to Jerry Dipoto and Mike Scioscia. And look, Dipoto wanted to help the Angels have some forward-thinking things implemented into their system. And I don't fault him for that. But he butted heads with Mike Scioscia. And so who was out? It was Dipoto. Scioscia stayed, right? Scioscia saw through his contract. Mike, if there's anybody on the level of a Mike Scioscia in Arte's eyes, it's going to be Torii Hunter or Albert Pujols. And in my opinion, Albert Pujols is going to have the sway and the influence to bend Arte Moreno's ear and to tell him, hey, you want excellence? You want me to help this team turn around? Here's what I need. Go and get them, right?
Yeah. And here's why it matters. And here's why Mike Scioscia was a really great manager. When he left, the record of the Angels got terrible. Mm-hmm. Mike Scioscia was able to manage this team in his last 2 years, 80 and 82, with the crappy roster that they gave him. 80 and 82, right? Didn't have a 90-loss season. Didn't have a bad, wow, we really just were terrible this year. There were a couple of years where there were injuries that hit them, but Mike Scioscia was a good manager, and a part of his good management was that he had Arte's ear. And that's why this team would always float around 500. Because remember, the narrative in the mid-teens, John, was, man, we just can't break the 500 barrier. We're at 500, but we just can't get over it, right? Now we dream about those days. We're like, oh, if we can get to 500, at the beginning of the year, I'm like, man, it would be a great year if we finished at 500. Right. What has happened to me, right? Yeah. Well, I've been lulled to sleep. That's why this move could be a great move, because it could be Mike Scioscia-esque, because he does have the ear of Arte, and it's why Mike Scioscia was a good manager. One, he had the ear of Arte, but two, he could take peanuts and he could turn it into peanut butter, and they would be competitive. They would be in this thing, right? Now, you look at the young guys, if Pujols comes in and Yachty comes in, man, what kind of fire could he stir in their bellies. So I love the word excellence, and I love the point of having Artie's ear.
And now I want some peanut butter since you brought it up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. It's the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I, we're making decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can help you cash in. And with football being back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on all of the action. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. By the way, super easy because it will say something like Christian McCaffrey, 1.5 touchdowns on Sunday. So you pick more or less. If you're going to pick less, you're probably going to win because that's the Niners offense right now. But It's super easy to use. Download the Prize Picks app and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live, especially playoff baseball. But getting tickets to a playoff game, that's the tough part. Login screens, surprise fees, people snapping up all the tickets and trying to resell them. Don't deal with that nonsense. Use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's easy. It's fast. It's backed by the Game Time guarantee. You're going to get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. All the fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's less stressful than any other way. I bought tickets this year, and if you're into some playoff baseball, you need to download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
The biggest question about Albert coming into this team, if it is Albert Pujols or whoever they hire, is what kind of commitment they're going to give him. Mm-hmm. Because here's what's happened, John. In the last 9 years, the Angels have had now, with this most recent hire, when they do hire somebody, 6 different managers in 9 years. Mm-hmm. Scioscia left, then Brad Ausmus, Joe Madden, Phil Nevin, Ron Washington, Ray Montgomery. Lots of turnover in that time. Now, that kind of run of managers was similar to the 90s run of managers. They had 7 in 10 years that included interim managers, but here's some of those names. You're going to love these names. John Buck Rogers, Terry Collins. They were all, John Wathan was there. Like, they were all there managing. Is that the right? Managing. the right word. Yeah. Managing during the 90s. And the longest tenure was only 3 years, and that was with Buck Rogers and Terry Collins. So I'm bringing this up because there's a lot of change that has been happening, and I think the Angels need to make a commitment to somebody and commit to building something with that person in charge. And then a voice from the past, John, comes out of nowhere, an Angel hater who Angel fans hate, right? Yep. We love to hate. A voice pops out of the ether and says something that we agree with. I would love for you to share that with our everydayers.
AJ Pierzynski.
Barf.
On our friends show, or our friends over at Foul Territory, of course, Scott Braun, Eric Kratz, and AJ Pierzynski, they've been very kind to us. They've been very good to us over the years, and they've even come on and talked with us, and it was a lot of fun. AJ, noted Angel hater, and the fans hate him right back, said this the other day on Foul Territory. He said, whatever they need to do, they need to give whoever it may be, the next manager, a 5-year plan and let him execute it. They need to make a commitment, Mike. And as we've seen, there's a lot of turnover, not just in the manager department, but the front office in terms of GMs and all that stuff. Now, to be fair, Epler had 5 years. Perry has had 5 years. DePoto was 2011 to 2015, 14, somewhere around there. 15, because it was the year after the playoffs. So they've all had their shot, but it's almost like, all right, if you're going to hire Albert Pujols, you better make a freaking commitment to Albert Pujols. This is not a one and done sort of thing, because if you don't give him what he needs and you don't give him the runway to do what he needs to do as manager, boy, think about all the other teams that would love to have future Hall of Famer Albert Pujols as their manager. Mike, St. Louis, right? I know they're not done with Ollie Marmol and whatnot. And JD Haffern over at Locked On Cardinals, he often tells his listeners, like, what's going on in St. Louis is not Ollie Marmol's fault entirely. And that's true. However, there's still fans that are clamoring for, like, hey, let's get Yadier Molina. Let's get Albert Pujols to come manage this team. Well, we got it right in front of us, man. We got it right in front of us in terms of Albert possibly being here. And so if that's the way that this is going to go, you got to give that dude some runway, don't you?
Yeah. 5-year deal. None of this 2-year deal nonsense. I don't even say 3-year deal, 5-year deal, or maybe a 3-year with 2 options, right? Like that would be the less best version, but perhaps what they should do, like 3-year deal with options, but they need to tell him, here's what we're going to do. I'm committing to spending this amount of money. I'm committing to getting up to the luxury tax. I'm committing to spending it here. I'm committing to getting your coaches. They need to do that. You have no wiggle room anymore, Arte Moreno. No wiggle room at all. You can't say, well, it's going to be year by year. If I'm Arte Moreno, I'm telling Albert Pujols, if that's who I want, I'm telling Albert, you got 5 years. Here's the lid. Here's the floor. Here's the sandbox that I want you to play in. And I want you to run with it. I'm going to let you bring in your guys. I'm going to let you work with our guys. And I'm going to give you a commitment because in 5 years, I would love to go, man, Albert has been the second best manager the Angels have ever had outside of Mike Scioscia. That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm committing to that. Player development, all of those things. And maybe perhaps because they do that, then these young guys end up finding themselves really performing. And then they go and get guys that help kind of fill in this roster. Perhaps Albert goes, bro, we need an ace. We need 2 really good pitchers. Give me an A and a B. I need them right now. And then Artie goes, okay, I'll do that. The reason why I already said I'm not paying a guy who shows up every 5 days to pitch is probably because he doesn't have a good baseball mind in his ear. Albert's going to be that good baseball mind. So I'm talking on this show, the more I'm like, let's do it, man. What are we waiting for? Already sign him up right now.
Yeah. Mike, I'm going to finish with one last thing, and it's this. We have often said on this show that one of the things that does not work for the Angels is that they've never had a president of baseball operations. They've always just given their GM the reins, right? And here's what it looks like historically. You've got multiple GMs, but the one through line was Mike Scioscia. And who did Arte Moreno trust more than Mike Scioscia? Not any of his GMs through that time period, right? And he didn't bring in Scioscia. That was Stoneman and Disney and everything, but it worked out. And so here's where I think the logic is backwards, but it makes sense for the Angels because their logic is backwards. Albert Pujols needs to be his own manager and player, president of baseball operations, right? And all Perry has to do, and maybe this saves Perry Manassian's job, is Albert and Artie talk, and they give the marching orders to Perry. Hey, go get that A pitcher and that B pitcher. Hey, go get that extra bat. And Perry says, done. I'll go do it. Because you know what hasn't worked? Listening to these GMs over the last couple of, decades, really. And it's always come down to the manager and who is in charge. And it's Scioscia. And we've seen, GMs butt heads with, Joe Maddon and Perry didn't get along. And Perry finally gets to pick his guy in Ron Washington. And, the circumstances around that, it's not entirely Wash's fault. But I think that if you give your manager the reins and then just give the GM the marching orders, I think that's got to be the formula that the Angels have to abide by because, like we said before, nothing else is working. And so try something new. You brought in an experienced manager. You brought in, a hard-nosed manager. You've done all that. And you've tried to do the GM and then manager structure. Man, don't tell me that Arte Moreno is going to listen to Perry Manassian over Albert Pujols, right?
Right.
And even though it's his GM, I think Pujols is going to have the influence and Perry's going to have the marching orders. I think it's going to save his job and keep him around another year. But to me, it's going to be the Arte show. It's going to be the Pujols show. What happens from there? I don't know. It could be a total disaster, as most things tend to be in Angel Land. But it's something different. And like we talked about with all the excellence that he could bring and Yadier Molina could bring, just do it, man. Just do it. I'm ready. Let's go.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your next listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. You can find Game Night on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Come on over to YouTube, find today's show, get in the comments section because we would love to hear from you. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Let's talk about the coaches, John, because if they're going to get a new manager, which ones stay and which ones go, we're going to give you our opinions. I think you know how we feel about Johnny Washington. We're going to give you our opinions tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation, and we hope you'll come back and join us for that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Friday.
That's the theme for 2026. Something different. Just give us something different. Don't do the same thing.
Anything.
Come on.